I think the biggest problem with the rain is that our cycling shoes got wet. Any newspaper that we read that day, we would crumple them up and stuff them in the shoe overnight, and the newspaper really absorbed all the water, and our shoes would be somewhat dry the next morning. I think that was the most miserable part of weather.
Yeah, I think it was definitely the shoes being wet, and then just the sort of general inability to dry off. You had these little pruny fingers because you literally were standing in the water all day. And then you get into a tent, which is a little wet because you set it up in the rain, and climb into your down sleeping bag, which then holds the moisture. I mean, there were weeks at a time where we just were damp all the time, and it was not fun, but it was a part of life. So just accepted it and moved on.
In the beginning of the trip, we got burned once, and we really learned our lesson. We made the decision really early to lather up on sunscreen every morning, even when we thought it was overcast.
Yeah, I think the gluey SPF 50 was one of the most difficult parts of the trip, actually, because every morning you would wake up and put it on, and it took so long to put it on and spread it properly because it really was like glue. And then it would be all over all of our clothes, all of our riding gear, our panniers, our sleeping bags. Everything was just this gluey SPF, but we persisted with it.
When we set out on the trip, we knew that we would be hitting Florida around Thanksgiving, Christmas time. So we had these visions of swimming in the ocean and sending photos back to our families. And actually, it was some of the coldest part of the trip, where we would wake up in the morning and our tent was frozen to the stakes. So we would have to wait, either warm them up with our hands and melt the ice enough to pull the stakes apart, or we would have to wait until the morning sun thawed it out.
Headwinds were a totally different problem. The coast of California, as we were cycling up, we started down in San Diego, and it was just such pleasant cycling. And then as we rounded Santa Barbara, people started looking at us kind of funny for traveling north in the spring. And it turned out, through some just lapse in research, I guess, that riding north in California in the spring is crazy. There's winds that come straight down the coast and become just direct headwinds every day without fail, no matter how nice it is out. They have 30-mile-an-hour winds. It felt like you were just pushing into a wall while you were riding. We weren't really riders before, so headwinds weren't something that we had thought about an awful lot, but we certainly wished we had. When we got to California, we probably would have gone around the other direction. So
the winds in the plains were a totally different beast. The winds would swirl around us. No matter which way you turned, you were just getting hit by headwinds, which would pick up the dust and the dirt, and every once in a while we'd get caught in these dust storms, and you just would breathe it in, and it would get in your eyes, and it wasn't as hard to ride in as the California winds, but it was just a different element that we never even thought of before we headed out there.
In Colorado, we were literally in the Colorado plains, and it started hailing, and there was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do besides keep riding, and it hurt so bad. It was miserable, like these needles stabbing you the entire time that you were riding. It was definitely unpleasant.
I think the most amazing part about those hailstorms in Colorado is that we saw them coming.
Yeah. The best was when you could see lightning coming with the hailstorm. So it would be hail and lightning, and it was also tornado season there, so everyone we talked to would say the best thing you can do if there's a tornado and you're on a bike is find an overpass and get under it. And we're in the middle of the plains of, it was Colorado and then Nebraska and Kansas, and there simply were no overpasses. I mean, it became ridiculous just thinking about that being the advice.
So then the next best advice that we got was to find a ditch and lay down. So we would put our bikes in the ditch, lay them down, or leave them on the side of the road, and we would lay down in the ditch and wait for the storm to pass over. But always mindful of our work, we would separate the computers and the hard drives from the bikes and put them in a different location before we laid down, so that if our bikes got struck by lightning, it wouldn't fry all of our information. So it would be the computer and one hard drive would be a little further down the ditch, and then there'd be another bag with another hard drive a little further down the ditch, and then us laying in the ditch. So it was quite a little process, but we got the hang of it really fast.
I think those were some of the scariest times on the trip, because we were completely powerless. I mean, there was nothing you could do. If the lightning was going to come for you or the tornado was going to come for you, that was it.
We got really, really lucky, and tornadoes touched down around us, but we never saw any. And I think the closest one that came was 30 miles away. We never saw the tornadoes. We got the side effects of the tornadoes, which were the hailstorms, but that was good enough for us. We didn't need to see anything to really know that they were around.
Yeah, and the scary green skies. That was the scariest thing, I think, where you look around you and the sky would just be green. It was really creepy. You know, you can only plan for so much. There's a certain point at which no blog, no travel book is going to tell you exactly everything you're going to encounter. So as long as you're prepared for some of the big things that most people have to deal with, you can sort of let the other stuff hit you and figure out how to deal with it. That was our plan. That was our grand plan. Deal with it as it comes.